Brent moving higher after the US and Iran exchanged fresh strikes overnight. President Trump telling Fox News this morning that the US will take over the Strait of Hormuz. Joining us now is Bloomberg Washington correspondent Tyler Kendall. How exactly is the US planning on doing this, Tyler?
Well, Vani, we didn't really get much details from President Trump, though it does seem to indicate longer-term U.S. involvement when it comes to the strait, since at this point the standoff over the waterway only really appears to be deepening as we get conflicting information from both sides on the exact status when it comes to what's happening with traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian state media earlier today reiterated a threat from the IRGC, which said that they are going to close the strait unless the U.S., quote, ends interference, as we know that the country has been dismayed by the fact that more vessels are using that U.S. coordinated route that hugs the coast of Oman instead of taking that path that would get them closer to the Iranian coast. There are a lot of different factors to watch here because it is very clear that this White House's patience has worn thin when it comes to the status of the strait, as over the weekend, CENTCOM confirmed that the U.S. military conducted 3 waves of strikes ultimately aimed at degrading Iran's capabilities to interfere and target commercial shipping. But Danny and Bonnie, we're really seeing those ramifications already take hold of this latest wave of escalation in just the past few days, because basically all of that traffic, observable traffic, has come to a halt. According to satellite imagery, though, our analysts at Bloomberg Intelligence analyzed the data, and they say for the last 3 days, the so-called dark crossings, when ships go through with their transponders off, those are now exceeding those observable crossings as commercial shippers show that they are weary of what has been this wave of attacks.
Peter Scheer of Academy this morning basically saying that it appears that Washington is approaching this with a priority of reestablishing deterrence, that is, showing their military might to deter Iran from trying to control the Strait of Hormuz or preventing ships from going through. Tyler, does it essentially seem that any hopes for continued talks are dead at this point?
Well, according to the White House, they're not. The president still says that he will let his negotiators move forward, but he doesn't necessarily think that it's going to actually yield some sort of tangible result. For months, the White House has said that it has been prioritizing a diplomatic solution to the conflict, but it has become very clear that Iran isn't willing to give up its leverage when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, even without the carrot of that sanction waiver that we saw the U.S. just remove last week amid this escalation. It appears evident that Iran is saying that its control over the strait would take precedent over that potential financial benefit that the country would get from selling its crude to market. Definitely something to watch here, but the U.S. military is making it very clear that more could be to come. We heard a threat from CENTCOM saying that if Iran does not issue this statement saying that the Strait of Hormuz is open, there could be additional attacks after more than 140 targets were hit over the weekend, according to the U.S. military. But Danny and Bonnie, we saw Iran take the opposite tact. In fact, it hit one commercial LNG tanker over the weekend and instead said that the strait is going to be closed unless the U.S. cedes to its demands.
And price of oil higher by 3.5%. Tyler, thank you so much. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall in Washington, D.C.